What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Stereo Therapy. I'm your host, Lisa. Of course, Justine is right there with me, and this is episode 81. I was really excited about this one because this one kind of came up as one of those small world situations where by me being on the Emo Social Club, which I'm so appreciative of them, go follow them if you are not. Come on, Nick Jonas does. You got to go follow them. But it led to this awesome conversation with me and Enoma of Haunter. It was such a great conversation because it was just him and I. And again, these things are such small world things. And I'm so happy to have a band like Haunter on our podcast. If you have not heard of them, by the time you're done with this conversation, go listen to their latest song because you will love it and you will fall in love with this band. So let's just get into it. Here's my conversation with Enoma of Haunter. Yeah. Oh, I learned a lot from them, like being on their show and just like off recording of like, here's how you do it. This is what we do. Here's what you should try to do. I'm like, it just is one of those situations where if you surround yourself with people that are better than you, it's like you're going to learn and grow. I'm like, from that, I'm like, I learned how to make video reels. I didn't even know what to do with video and like all that stuff where it's like, that was such a great opportunity to be like, you're better than me. How do I get better myself? So, oh, I love those
Oh,
two so much.
yeah, I've got nothing but amazing things to say about both of them. They've been so kind to us, and
Yeah.
we're so grateful. But I love what you shared in that moment because that's a big part of my philosophy is just constantly being in rooms with people who are far more talented than I am, and all I do is ask questions and try to learn as much as I can.
Yeah.
Even if let's say for instance we think about like our band's producer Tyler, he is arguably the hottest producer in rock right now. Like, and it's not even like a matter. What's funny is like it's not a matter of opinion, but like if you look at the Billboard charts, like they actually have charts for producers. You go under hard rock, he is number one. Like so certified. Like
Hmm.
we are working with the best of the business right now. Like we are so incredibly lucky, but it all stems from just being curious and being in spaces where you're like, hey, I don't know how to do what you do, but can you like walk me through it or talk to me about it and share this passion? And all it does, you leave those conversations feeling so affirmed and like that you're on the right path. And you're just like, cool, I now know that I need to go harder in this direction, or I need to do this, or I need to do that. But like you walk away being better and you just continually try to elevate yourself to like make sure that not that you just belong, because you always belong, but just you want to sit there and think, okay, if I walk into these rooms, like am I not necessarily like the go-to, but like am I do I really make sense here? Do the
Hmm.
things, the thoughts and perspectives that I'm adding, like, do they make sense? Do they add value to the conversation or to what we're looking to accomplish when we all come into it together and get into a room?
Man, I gotta clip that. That itself right there for anybody like listen to this. Because it was, I think it was Kaylee Goldsworthy we had on, gosh, back in January, and she was talking because she was in Frank Iiero's band of My Chem and the Future Violence. And she was like, that taught me so much of, hey, if I can be learn from them and take that. And it's okay. It's not an opportunity mooch. It's one of those things of like surrounding myself with these people and growing. And I was like, that's stuck with me. And then, like I said, like being around Brian and Lizzie and them just like, hey, we want you on our Bayside episode. And we'll promote stereotherapy. I'm like, I'm so much smaller than you. And that meant so much that like I have, compared to what they have and their 10K they just hit, which is amazing on TikTok. But it's like
Yeah.
the fact that you wanted to do that and me that like again, I'm lucky, I have a lot of subscribers, but like nowhere near them. Like that meant so much. They were just like, yeah, we want to bring all these people on that we want to boost a little bit.
But that's the amazing thing about the community is that when you find the right people, like they truly are just like, hey, I will help out. Like I won't like charge. I'll just sit there and say, hey, I see what you're trying to do. I like what you're trying to do.
Hmm.
Let me help you. Like
Yeah.
people immediately, I find that, especially in the creative fields, the right people or who I deem, you know, good people, so to speak, are the ones who are willing to let you like bend their ear, get their perspective. Like they'll always say like, hey, yeah, send it to me. I don't know how timely I'll be with getting back to you, but I will always like make time and make space because I see what you're doing. I know what you're trying to accomplish. I was in that spot at
Hmm.
some point. And so I'm trying to pay it forward by making sure that you at least have access to somebody who you're seeing as like a mentor in some capacity. So I don't know. I just love it. And the fact that like you're sharing that and I know that they're good people is
Hmm.
I love that. I love it when the scene comes together and like supports one another.
Oh yeah, that's why like when they had me on, I was like, guys, I'm like, if you follow our show, you have to follow them because they're just good people. I'm telling you, even if you don't like their takes and you're looking at TikTok and you're like, I don't like this take, just go. They're great people. They're doing what they want to do, and I love it. But oh my gosh, oh, I feel like I could talk all day about that. But I love your band. Like when you reached out, I was like, right away, I was like, this is so great. I'm so glad we're gonna get to push this. This is so awesome.
Well, thank you. I'm really glad you like it. Like, I think one of my own little like insecurities about this life in general. Like, I I worry a lot how our band is perceived and how the music we put out is received. Mostly because I this sounds silly, but I remember when we started the band and I convinced everyone to come to LA and work on music. I was just I think I was just kind of delusional when I said this. I was like, hey, like I'm starting this band and like my only real goal is to change your lives. So I've really put a lot of pressure on myself to perform and to try to continue to grow this band like as much as possible. Like I mean, I spend every free moment that I have from when I wake up to when I go to bed, like doing something for the band. Like anyone who knows me will tell you, like the first thing I do when I wake up is I check our socials to see if there's anything I need to like engage with to just kind of keep us active. Then I start firing off the first couple of posts. So I'm like posting to TikTok, posting to Instagram, posting to YouTube Shorts, posting to Twitter, like, and then I just kind of go throughout the day, multiple times a day, just trying to be as consistent as possible because I know that this is an avenue that will lead to growth. And I'm just thinking it will just take the right song with the right creative, with the right caption. And if we post enough, there's enough back catalog so that when someone does discover us, they're able to go back and be like, oh, they have all of these songs, they have all this stuff going on. Like there's substance here. It's not just the one song. The one
Hmm.
song that gets them through that introduces them to you, but like once they start wanting to discover and be curious about you, they have all this back catalog, all this other content that they can consume and enjoy, and hopefully something connects with them.
Yeah, that's like the majority of most of the bands I'll find. They're like, how did you find us? I'm like, it's through TikTok. Something made me stop and hey, let me go check out this band. Let me go check that out. And I love the content you guys have. I think it's so colorful and so like it's like again, it's something I'm glad to see it out there. I'm a big like of whatever everyone just wants to call emo music, all that kind of stuff. But it's cool when there's a sound like yours. And that also, after you emailed me and I looked at your socials, I was like, again, like this is really cool. Okay, this would have made me stop for sure. Like just even the text you guys use and just everything. And I don't even know if it's intentional with like your theme of your band, but like the colors of even like your photos, just everything. It just is, it's just so cool. And I know that's so cliche to say for a band, but I just, anyone listening, like again, I'm going to post all the links, everything to send them your way.
I appreciate that, and yeah, it's by design. Like I won't say that I know what I'm doing all the time
Hmm.
because I certainly don't. Like I believe you me, I've been humbled in so many like aspects and avenues when it comes to trying to be in a band that's doing literally anything. But there are a few things that I've learned that I think help us now. And one particularly is like branding, like being really consistent in how we're perceived. I think the all white definitely came into play when we were doing Untouchable, and I think since Untouchable is also a part of the single package for City Boys, I was like, well, we can kind of do something that still leans in that and still takes some of those colors and themes that we've built up from all of our previous releases and bringing it to something that's very like I would say polished. I would say this is probably the most polished release that we have right now, and everything was done very intentionally.
I kind of want to talk about that because I've been loving City Boys and Pretty Girls. It just came out, and I know I'm already going to push this one out because I want to send people to it. But I love that song. And I feel like it's going to end up on my Spotify wrapped for sure. But at the rate I'm going, I
Oh
might just hit it.
man.
I'm like, I am, it probably is. And it just is so good. I love Lucy's voice. Her voice is just so good. And I think it just fits it so well. And I know you've talked about what the song is about on so many podcasts. Just the Jam XP episode. I love that one. But I guess for
Yeah,
anyone that didn't listen for it, I know the inspiration kind of came, and it's kind of like your what you guys call your pop punk diss track, which I love
yeah.
that explanation for it. But I would love to know from you if you want to kind of tell like the inspiration behind this, because I think it's so interesting.
Yeah, the inspiration behind City Boys and Pretty Girls kind of came from when it was a few years ago when we were in LA. We had some friends that were in town from Houston, and we were all in LA at the same time, which very rarely happens that like all your music friends are all kind of in the same city. So we go to their show, we hang out. It was a really good time, and they're like, "Hey, we're going to this house party in the hills with a couple of influencers. We're just gonna kick it, see what the vibe is." So we're like, "Cool, we have a we're free for the night, so let's go." We go to this house, and it's a beautiful home.
Hmm.
Like it's what you would think when you think of like, oh, like a party in the Hollywood Hills with influencers. It's pretty much that. Like, and it was cool, but it was weird for us because we at the time we weren't like super active on the socials, so we didn't really get the whole concept of like an influencer house.
Hmm.
But it was an influencer house. It was like all of these creatives, they all live together, they all make content separately, and they all make content together. So when we went back to the house, that's what they were doing, and it was just bizarre to me at the time. I
Yeah.
was like, wow, this is weird. And I'm an elder emo too, so some of the stuff that they're doing, I'm just like, I
Yeah.
don't get it. I don't get it. It's just
Hmm.
that's cool. It's not for me.
Yeah.
I'm at a certain point in my life where things are not for me, and some of the stuff they were doing wasn't for me,
Yeah.
and that's okay. When I get we there was a lull in the night, and I was out on the patio, like just got done talking to one of my bandmates, and I start chopping it up with someone who's out there with a couple of different people, and I started just kind of picking their brains, like, hey, like, do they live at the house? What do they do? What are their socials? And we started just talking about music and content creation, and they kind of get on the subject of asking me a little bit more about like my band and what we do. So I started talking to them about it, and one of the creatives asked me, "He's like, oh, hey, that sounds great. Like y'all are working with someone really cool." It's like, hey, so what's your follower count?
Hmm.
And at the time we were like maybe like 2,500, three
Hmm.
thousand, like not very large at all. Like, and we're still not like big on any of the socials, but it was a modest number.
Yeah.
And I just saw the complete lack of interest. Like any interest that person had in like wanting to get to know me, like I could just see it slowly draining from their face.
Yeah.
And so and they're like, oh, okay, well, just keep at it. And I
Hmm.
was like, wow, okay, you just really were just about like the clout. Like you were just trying to see if had a large enough platform for you to be like, hey, bro, let's make some content together.
Yes.
And it just felt gross. It felt gross. Like I get it now since I've been doing like making content. Making I hate using that term,
I know. Yeah.
since I've been like filming these TikToks and like we're starting to like slowly try to get better, do things differently, bring people in, so it's not just like me, Lucy, and an iPhone. Like I
Hmm.
get it now, but I didn't at the time, and so I left that party being like low key, fuck that guy.
Hmm.
Like this
Yeah.
doesn't feel good. It's like, why are you like you were literally chopping it up with me for like 20 minutes, and then we get to the subject of this, and now you're like, oh, okay, well you can do nothing for me. Let me get out of here.
Yeah.
Like it just felt gross, and so I took that kind of thought process into the studio the next day, and I already kind of had a title and a theme, and it all just came together because I was like, this is what we need to be talking about, like how social media like it's weird, it's fake, and like it's like you have to be a part of it, but you are begrudgingly not wanting to be a part of it until you start getting some stuff, until you start getting some momentum, then you start kind of maybe buying into your own hype a little bit.
Hmm.
And so it's like, how do you remain humble, and how do you like make sure that even though like this is part of the game, you're not you know getting high on your own supply. So I don't know, it's just really what kind of came from a very awkward interaction, and I don't know. I just thought that was a really interesting starting point for a song.
Yeah, that's and even me, I've experienced that on a different level. Obviously not an influencer, but I guess a little bit. Like we've tried to even get some influencers on the show, and just because it was like it would be really cool to get their take, because they are making their elder emo content and like we can relate and music obviously impacted them, but it's funny because everything will go far and it's, I won't name names, but we'll get emails, everything set up. Okay, great. But I know they either went to the socials, looked at the follower count, looked at that, and then it like stops and there's that ghosting. And it's almost like, okay, but if I maybe had that, because you'll go on other podcasts that have the follower count, the
Hmm.
everything that you want. And it's like that's the thing too of that culture where it's like, all right, we're not follower counts, we're not that. We're people. And I hate
Yeah.
calling it content. Like the number one thing I hate the most about the podcast is the sort of content creation on the TikToks I have to make. I hate it. There's nothing more that I hate than doing that. It's like if I could just throw it out there and someone find my podcast, great. But like the reality is, no, you have to create something to make people stop.
Yeah. I mean, you have to create something that will catch people, and then you also have to make sure that it's shot well enough, but not too well. Like it's
Yeah.
so weird. Like, and the thing that would drive me crazy was that you would always have these like gurus that would say, "Oh, do this if you
Oh.
want to go viral, or do that, or you're not posting enough, or you're not doing this type of content, or you're not being like inflammatory enough. You're not
Hmm.
being grabby enough." And it's just kind of like, well, I don't want to be any of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to write my songs and and hope that someone connects with it. And I understand. I think now because we've done it for so long, I understand. Like as I'm scrolling through TikTok, like it does take a second for something to kind of like grab me to the point where I want to see. I can pretty much figure out if I'm going to watch a video within the first 2 to 3 seconds of the
Hmm.
video, and that's what I've been trying to do with our content is being very like, okay, how can I be as grabby without being like weird or like inflammatory or anything of that nature? Just like how can I be like quick, like have some sort of animation, some sort of prompt, something that'll at least get them to give it more than like 8 seconds notice, because I know, or at least I'm confident that the songs are good enough and I picked a part of the song that is catchy enough to grab somebody's attention.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's so much that goes into that. And that's why I respect anyone that takes the time to do that. Cause you're right. There are these like gurus that are like, you should be posting at this time of day. This is the time. This is what you have to do or use. And I found when I was using like the sounds these gurus were telling me, or like, hey, and I was like, but I'm not being genuine. I'm not being myself. And I'm listening to this person who may or may not know what they're talking about either. But I'm like, why am I chasing that? And I had to almost come to terms with that of when I'm myself and post things that are so genuine, I'm like, this is like either what I would like to see or just me being myself. I'm like, those are the things that have drawn the sort of like community we have and the followers, not like what some social media content creator guru wants to tell me.
Yeah, like I would like to believe they all start from a very genuine place. Like I want to help people,
Yeah.
and obviously they're wanting career, so they're like, I want to help people, but I also want to monetize. So let me try to impart wisdom, but also like if I can do this and marry my passion for social media and education, I can find a way to pay my bills to get my house in order and do this full time. So
Mhm.
you have to understand. You also have to understand like when you're watching content, even like content like that, you have to think who is benefiting from it. Like, are they benefiting from like a potential like sale or lead, or are they benefiting because like you find value in their content? You'll subscribe, you'll follow them, and then they'll at some point reap the benefit of that. So it's all a game. But once you are in it enough and you're working on your own thing, you have to find the ways to grow that feel genuine to you, and that can be really hard because sometimes it takes a little bit longer than you would like to gain any traction or find your audience.
Mhm.
And I still think, quite candidly, we're still trying to figure out who our audience is. We're still trying to find it because we seem to be playing in a lot of different arenas. Like I would say a lot of the bands that are what I would call up next, know of us, and we're friends with some of them, and so it's so, I'm trying to think of the phrase for it, but there's this kind of comfort that I have knowing that I'm in those spaces, even as a
Mhm.
satellite, like, but we're creeping closer and closer towards the center of that universe. As
Yeah.
we put songs out, as bands co-sign us, as we get like placements on like Pandora or Sirius or Adobe, like everything that we're doing is slowly showing us that we're on the right path, that we're slowly like getting there. Maybe not, certainly not the pace that we wanted to, but like we're doing the things that will get us there eventually, and that's exciting.
Yeah, that is exciting because it's so important and it's tough to find your audience. I know even us in the beginning and even doing a podcast for that matter, it was like I had to learn that my audience are not most likely my family and friends that I hope will follow my stuff and like my stuff. I need to find my audience. And 9 times out of 10, like my audience are people that I don't know. Those are the biggest people that are listening or resonating with it and realizing that early on in the creative world of all that of listen, your friends love you, your family loves you, but like you have to understand that. And that was a tough balance, I know, for us for sure.
Yeah, like when I first started, not this band, when I started my previous band,
Yeah.
uh, it was a lot of that. Like I would go to friends and family first to share stuff, and it it was cool, and they were very supportive. They were extremely supportive to put stuff out and hope that things kind of land, because like you said, your family and your friends are not your audience. Like they, like most people, really only come around after they've seen what I call a proof of concept.
Hmm.
So when you sit there and you blow up, and you blow up doing it your way and on your terms, that's usually when people start turning around. That's usually when people are like, "Oh, right, my friend has this podcast that's apparently like blowing up on TikTok."
Yeah.
Like
Uh-huh.
all of a sudden they remember, like, "Oh, you're doing something."
Hmm.
Because no one, it's like, I hate this analogy, but I actually think it's very true. It's like no one wants to show up to a party early or on time.
Hmm.
Everyone wants to get to the party a little bit late, because they're
Yeah.
like, well, only the cool kids show up late. Like, no,
Hmm.
when it comes to like discovering and supporting art, like the cool kids, I say arguably are the ones that show up early.
Hmm.
Like show up early, stay engaged, stay committed, like amplify their favorite band, and on any kind of platform they have. I argue that those are the people that are far cooler than just the people who come around and be like, "Oh, I heard this band is blowing up,
Oh,
so let me pretend like I was 10 toes down from the very beginning."
1,000% I can resonate with that because back in April, I mean, we love Anthony Green. We love Circus Survive. That's our guy. We love him. He, I guess, one day shared our podcast, and it was one of those things. He shared it on his Instagram. I had no idea. I woke up all these texts, but it was so funny because it was one of those things. Like I was posting about our podcast forever, like it was around until he made that post. Then certain people I knew were like following it or, oh, that's Lisa. That's Lisa's podcast, this or that. And I was like, oh, okay, because he posted about I'm glad you're here. But it was one of those things you were just talking about. And it was I never forgot the people that like when I had the 10 followers and we're like, oh, that's really cool. She's putting that out there. So it's for sure can resonate with that.
Yeah, you always remember your day ones.
Yes.
You always, and I think even for us as a band, the way that we even came into existence is because like I was a day one fan of our producer's band Danger Kids. Like when they came onto the scene and they started touring, I would give them a place to stay. I would just be like,
Mhm.
"Hey, y'all are sick. We seem to know a few of the same people. If y'all just want to need a place to shower and use the internet and just kind of like get away from the text, like you're more than welcome to come crash with me." And so they would crash with me. It is really like being the day one, being early has a lot of benefits,
Mhm.
especially like say for instance, if you're wanting to like really get into the music scene, like being early to be like a day one fan of a band, and like being respectful of their boundaries, and like knowing when it's appropriate to like try to connect and engage, like you automatically place yourself on a very short list of people that they're going to have the bandwidth to remember.
Mhm.
Like, so an example is like if a band is touring throughout, they're doing, we'll say, 30 days over the course of 30 dates, like over the course of a summer. Like, if you are engaging with them on socials and they like come to your town and you meet them and you're like super polite, you're respectful of boundaries, like you're knowing when it's appropriate to like pop in and chat and like give them the space for them to do their things. The next time you come into town, they're going to be like, oh, yeah, I remember you. They're more likely to. Now, granted, most people will probably be like, say oh, yeah, I remember you, to just be like pleasant
Hmm.
and all that. But there's definitely an avenue for you to get yourself in the right room if you behave accordingly and if you like just genuinely try to create a connection. And that's the thing that is super beneficial, because you never know what that could turn into, especially if you're someone who has a skill. If you're a photographer, a
Hmm.
videographer,
Yeah.
hell, if you're a songwriter or someone who's looking to get into merch, like you have an avenue because you've shared with them, like, hey, like I really like what you're doing. I do this, and I'm always available. And if you just are just cool, just be cool. And I think you'd be surprised with the connections you can make and the opportunities that are abound.
Yeah, like that's what I've experienced being out here. I'm originally from Chicago area, so moving here to New Jersey, I was always so scared to do that, but I found the amount of cool people I have met in the New Jersey scene that are just like willing to do that and kind of take me under their wing because I am like, hey, I'm working on this. I would love to, and I've had like two bands on that are local, and it's wonderful to have that community here and see it is there. And again, because I wasn't pushy about it, I was just like, hey, I'm doing this podcast. I would love to have you on sometime and have some local talent. And then here I am. Somehow I'm in Asbury Park with all these local bands. I never would have had I not just approached it and support the local scene. I think it's so important.
Oh, absolutely. Because so when I say I'm an older emo, I'm definitely an older emo, like who grew up on the East Coast. So I'm
Yeah.
very familiar with like doing shows at VFW halls and
Mm-hmm.
like at churches, like wherever you could get something going. So having the local scene, like it was really important, because there would always be like a band that would start doing something, like
Mm-hmm.
having some sort of momentum. And nothing is better for a city than when a band finally starts to blow up. Like, because that's when the community kind of starts coming together. Like, whether because I'm from Houston now, like, and I
Hmm.
think the last band that I was super aware of that blew up was Water Parks.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, they blew up, like, because they were super talented. They drew the right crowd. They were doing stuff online way before a lot of bands in this city. So like when they blew up, it was like, okay, those are the boys. Those are going to be the boys that put Houston on the map when it comes to like rock and alternative. So it was really cool to see. And we definitely have a lot of bands that are starting to do some cool things. Like there's what's that band? Rosie. Like they're really starting to blow up. They're blowing up on the socials. There's so much talent in this city, but it feels a lot of times, because the community hasn't really kind of banded together, that we're missing that collective, like, oh, those are our boys, or those are our girls, or
Hmm.
our theys who are like really, really kind of putting the city on the map, at least within rock music. Hip hop, like Houston can't be touched. Like we're one of the most dominant cities for that genre. But when it comes to like the scene stuff, there really hasn't been anyone that's popped off quite as big as Water Parks.
Yeah, like even us before we had like I had a lot of Pittsburgh bands. I had even West Coast, but I think it was Long Live the Lights. They were my first Houston band. And learning about like I had no idea because I'm again Midwest in New Jersey, not realizing that Houston had a scene like that, like a band like Long Live the Lights. I would never even told them. I was like, I thought like Texas was I'm like, don't kill me, but like just country and things like that. I had no idea and they're like, no, there's a place for us. There's a place for so many things. And it was really cool to hear that because kind of put me in check a little bit, like, hey, be open to that and realize that yes, maybe I think it's country, but there's a lot going on in some of these places that we don't think about.
Oh yeah, Houston's rock scene is. I mean, I think Texas in general, like I would say if there was a rock genre that we're most known for, it's probably metal.
Hmm.
Like the metal subculture in Texas is like it's deep. It is a deep well. It's massive. There's so many bands, and a lot of them are actually pretty damn good. But like a band like Long Live the Lights, like I one love those boys. Like we are
Hmm.
homies with them. They're good dudes. Um, but yeah, bands with that kind of sound maybe a little more rare, but like there's a lid for every pot in this state when it comes to music.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Like I'm hearing that. And I mean, something we also love to ask on this show, and it's one of those things that it's so interesting. I would love to hear from you. What are those first memories of falling in love with music? Whether it was an artist, a time, a place. A lot of people say the car, they'll hear something. But for you, what kind of made you realize, like, hey, this is deeper than I like this song on the radio?
Ooh, I don't really know like a particular like, oh, okay, like now I'm activated sort of moment.
Hmm.
But I do kind of remember when I found my favorite band, and I just moved to Houston, and I had been playing music a little bit, but I started a band, and our drummer at the time was a big like he loved like emo music, like
Hmm.
traditionally like like we're talking like late '90s, early 2000s emo. So it's like American football,
Hmm.
it's Drive Like Jew, it's I think it was 2001. So it was like Dashboard Confessional like was just starting to blow up. So then obviously a band like the Juliana Theory,
Hmm.
which such a good band, such a
Yes.
so good. Emotion is Dead is
Yes.
timeless classic album.
Yes.
But this drummer he had what album he had Jimmy Eat World. He had like every Jimmy Eat World CD that was out at the time. So it was or their major releases rather because there's a lot of 7 inches, a lot of singles that they put out. But it was he let me borrow Static Prevails, he let me borrow Clarity, and then he let me borrow Bleed American. And I like did a super deep dive on the band and like from the very first note on Static Prevail, so like the end of Bleed American, like I was locked in. I was like, this is the best music I've ever heard in my life. This is hands down my favorite band. I could not stop listening to Jimmy World. So they were the first band I was like truly madly in love with.
Oh, that I'm so glad you said that because I have tried to get some justice for Jimmy Eat World on this podcast and nobody has ever said them yet. And I'm like, somebody out there is going to say them because I love Jimmy Eat World. Like they, I think, are so timeless. And I think some of the new generation, maybe, I don't know, I want to say they skip, but they just sometimes aren't the quick to say, oh, Jimmy Eat World. But our generation, right? Like we love them and they're so important. And I mean, even their album Futures, that I think that's such an underrated record. I'm like, I love that record. I think that record is so important. I remember when it came out, and if I get to when we were young, I'm like, hands down, I'm seeing Jimmy Eat World. They're so perfect. And I love them so much.
100% hard agree. I absolutely love them. Futures to me is arguably their best record,
Yes.
like of all time. Like there's it's not even a question of it. Like I truly think that they are absolutely incredible. I've driven. I remember when they did their Clarity tour for their 10-year anniversary. I drove to Phoenix to see them play Clarity in its entirety. I've driven to Tulsa and Oklahoma City to see them play for Futures. I'm if I wasn't flying to Mexico for my brother's wedding in October, I would go to Phoenix to see them play Futures for the 20th year anniversary.
Yes. Oh, I saw that and I was like, oh, I'm like, somehow I got to make that happen because I always say that. I think that's their best record. And everybody is like, no, or even, later, those records that came later in their catalog. I'm like, everyone wants to talk Clarity and Bleed American. And those are great records. But I'm like, guys are missing out. You're missing out on the Jimmy Eat
Oh,
World
for
train.
sure.
If you like sat, I'm trying to think, oh, is it Chase This Light? That record too? Maybe it's that
Jason
one.
was a great record. I think for me, if I had to have my two favorite or my top three, would be Futures number one without a doubt.
Hmm.
Integrity Blues would be
Yes.
number two, and then I would say probably I am a sucker for their pop hook, so I think Bleed American would be number three.
Yeah. Oh, but again, yeah, so finally someone that agrees with me with futures. I'm like, yes, finally.
Oh yeah,
Oh, how can
perfect
you
record.
not? Like, how can you not? This one is just it's one of those ones. And yeah, no, that 2000s like emo era. I mean, even this podcast is named after the band North Star. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they were part of that wave a little bit. They had like I'm trying to think of the record. I see the cover. I can't think of it. But North Star was in there with the American football. And they had a lyric that said, stereotherapy heals my lesions. And I was like, I love that because music, that's what it does. And I'm like, I'm waiting for the day. I'm like, somebody has to know this band, but like nobody does. So I'm like, I don't know, like no love for North Star.
So they sound familiar, but like it doesn't ring a bell right straight away.
No. And like but they were lumped in that, like for sure. I mean, if people, especially the American football kind of fans ish, but they weren't even really big. So they weren't like huge. So I get it. But oh man, no. Oh, I can talk Jimmy World all day, but I mean, I'm like that. Finally found my person. It took us how many episodes? What? This is going to be like 79 or 80 when this comes out. But you know what?
Wow.
I found my person that,
There we
Jimmy
go.
World Justice. Like my co-host Justine that couldn't be here today. I'm gonna have to text her and be like, listen, finally it happened. But obviously our podcast is also the importance of mental health. So I would love, how has music aided your mental health in any way?
Well, I mean, I think it's been absolutely vital to my mental health. Like I didn't really take stuff like that very seriously until the pandemic, when I underwent surgery and I got into therapy for some issues with body dysmorphia, and it was eye opening because it turned into like the body dysmorphia stuff turned into self esteem stuff, which then turned into relationship stuff, and
Hmm.
you know it's been a tool that I've used to try to get better and have harder, more honest conversations with myself. It's been a journey, but it's vital, and music has always played like a really integral part in that because when you are trying to work through feelings, or I know there's times where you just like you need to get like a cry out.
Hmm.
Like I just feel it. I just need something to kind of nudge me over the edge, and just so I can get this feeling out. I will listen to certain songs and put me in a space where I'm like, okay, I can let this out. Or conversely, if I'm upset and I need to get energy out, there's nothing better than like metalcore to kind of
Hmm.
help you just get some of that aggression out, like in a productive way. So whether you go and like just kill it at the gym, or you go for a run, or you lift some weights, you do something to get that aggression out that's safe and healthy. It can work wonders because this brain right here likes to not be so nice
Hmm.
to me. So having music helps. But yeah, I take mental health really seriously, and it's been something that's been a big focus of mine for the past few years.
Yeah, and I can resonate so much with that because I too, body dysmorphia is something I had to explain to my fiance. He had no idea what it was. And to him, it was like, oh, that's not real. And again, I'm someone that's not always kind to myself and things like that. And it's a tough thing. Also, even in the year 2024, we still have to explain it to people that these are real things. Even if you don't experience it, it's a real thing that can be, it's very debilitating. There's many times where I've skipped on like barbecues or something. If I know, okay, there's a pool, we're going to go to a pool party and I'm just not, I've missed, and that's where my mental health, I've missed out on so much because of those things. And then explaining that to someone, and it's it's just so hard. And I think it's a constant battle every day in my mental health. And even, like last night going to the concert, it was like I was having a very anxious day. I didn't want to go, but I knew if I could just get myself there and get through that mental rut, I'd be okay. And I was, once I was there, it was fine. But mental health is a constant, even for me, a constant battle every day.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I will even be really vulnerable with you and share that like on the day the City Boys came out, like I was feeling pretty depressed. Mostly because like I we had signed on with some new partners to try to like push the release, and we are really hoping to land some editorial spots. And I will say this, to their credit, they were really clear and transparent. Like Spotify placements are not guaranteed. Like Apple
Mhm.
Music placements are not guaranteed. None of the placements on any of the platforms are ever guaranteed by anybody. Anyone who says I can guarantee that I can get you this, they're lying to you.
Mhm.
Like I with the experience I have in the people in the industry that I know that have been successful with it, it's all very like time, place, relationship with the distributor, and like is the band doing stuff? Like, are you active? Do you have something coming up? Like, so we have done all this groundwork and we had grown in all these ways. And so I was just really hoping. I was like, I've done everything I can. They believe in the track. We believe in the track. We're doing everything we can to promote it. Like the feedback so far has been really good. And then like obviously like you start knowing they start emailing you if and when you get placements like pretty much the night of release. And so like we didn't get any of those placements. And so I was just really like bummed. I was like,
Mhm.
oh man, like we worked really hard. I worked really hard to make this happen and to do all these things and to get this pre-order going. And like so we had done a lot of this work and it was just like, ah, really was hoping this would go differently.
Yeah.
But but it's okay because at the end of the day, discovery is still happening. People are still finding our band. We're still growing. Like we put out a really good song and it's going to find its audience.
Yeah.
So don't get me wrong, those things are validating, but they're also not the thing that's going to make or break our career. And I heard that from people who I trust very much who have had success as an unsigned band on getting on those huge like playlists. Like a friend of mine in a band, Nevertell, like
Mhm.
and Nevertell's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Shout out to them. Like one of the best up and coming like metalcore, like hip hop inspired bands out there. Like they are insane. But I shared with him, I was like, yeah, man, I'm just feeling like this. This is what's going on. And my friend in the band, he was like, oh, you know what, dude? Don't worry about it. Like those things aren't a marketing plan. Like they're cool. And when it's always awesome, like when that happens, but it's not the end all be all. It's not the thing that's going to get you where you want to go. You just need to continue growing and building. Y'all are doing the right stuff. Maybe this just wasn't the right one. And you have more material, so you know that there's going to be another shot at this. So just continue to do the work, continue to show up every day and be ready to engage and make it happen.
Yeah, and I mean, when we even talk mental health, like that alone, like I think people don't realize that, right? Like when we listen to our favorite artist or just any artist, right? The mental toll and the mental gymnastics of the release, leading up to the release, after, just the grind of it all, and I think and it just is such an important thing that we support artists. A simple share can go such a long way, and hey, I mean, that's why anytime I see something on any social media, I'm reposting or sharing because that alone, that's something for free we can all do and do that and just support because I can't imagine the mental gymnastics of putting all your heart into this and then having that happen. I would have a similar reaction, just be like, you want to be excited that it's out there, but then you have to balance, not getting those placements, not having that, and finding a balance somehow, however you can.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like it took a couple of hours for me to kind of not feel bad about it. But like I definitely had to feel my feelings and get
Hmm.
through that. And just continue to partner with our distributor and share with them like, hey, like could we do anything differently next time? But like what I got from them was just like, no, based on everything that we've asked you to do, you've met or exceeded the goals. So just this will help us be ready for the next one. And you're laying the groundwork. So it may not be this one, it may be the next one. Like we just have to keep trying and we have to keep growing. So it doesn't it while it is good from a validation standpoint, it doesn't change the fact that the work still needs to be done. And
Hmm.
if we really want to be part of that conversation, if we really want to be in the rooms with our friends who are doing well, then this is one of those moments where we have to decide, are we going to lean in or are we going to pull back and isolate and miss this opportunity to grow? The thing that I've learned for myself is the only the only way things have worked out for me is by not giving up,
Hmm.
by being persistent and insistent. I'm like, I just have to keep going. I could be tired, I could be depressed, I could be sad or heartbroken, but it doesn't change the fact that like I made a promise to try to change my friends' lives. And if this is what I got to do to get to that point, then that's what I'll do.
Oh, I love that. Oh, again, I'm like, can I just clip like this whole episode? Is Instagram gonna let me do that? No, they're gonna give me a minute. They're gonna give us a minute 30. That's what they're gonna give us all the time. But that's and it I like too that you've said in that too, how you let yourself feel that. Cause so many of us, sometimes even I'm guilty of it, where it's like, oh, well, I'm not. I'm just gonna table it and suppress it. And that's not good either for my mental health. It's an awful habit I have, but I love that you let yourself feel that way when you are feeling those feelings.
Yeah, and it's not easy. I think I've been far more mindful of how I'm going to feel on a release day, so that I typically take it off of the 9 to 5, like for release day, just because I know like I want to be super present on the social so I can get to every comment in the timely fashion and really like try to do what we need to juice the algorithmic reach as much as possible. But I also do it because I'm like, oh, I know I'm not going to be able to focus on work because I'm going to want to be on my phone and looking at the socials and doing the things that I need to be doing to help generate buzz or interest on what we're presenting.
Oh my gosh, so many things. But like also for mental health awareness, I would love to know where would you like to see it go? Because I know a lot of people, obviously like affordability, accessibility, but for you, where would you like to see growth in mental health awareness?
So I think everyone is starting to become more aware of it, but I actually, and this sounds weird, I would love to see more seniors take their mental health more seriously. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, my parents are well into their 70s, right?
Mhm.
I would argue they need therapy badly,
Mhm.
but and not a poke fun like, oh, my parents are messed up, so they messed me up. I mean,
Yeah.
everyone's messed up. There's no such thing as like perfectly normal, perfectly healthy. Like everyone's got something.
Yeah.
But I really think that the older generation has yet to, they're willing to tolerate the conversation with mental health, but they're not willing to act on it for themselves. And I
Yeah.
really think that they could spend their golden years learning some new tools and some new ways to engage with their children or their children's children so that they can have a better relationship with them. So while they're still here, like, here's a way for you to engage with the younger people who do take mental health seriously, who are very emotionally intelligent, or maybe sometimes they're hypersensitive, and that's okay. Like, you gotta be able to try to meet people where they're at.
Love that you said that because that's one thing. I love my mom if she's listening to this. I don't know. Sometimes she does, sometimes she doesn't, but she's someone my mom has been through a lot in her life and she's one of the people I have suggested like have you thought of therapy? I really do think you would benefit from it because of everything you've gone through and you kind of were that generation that was like, all right, just grab life, by the bootstraps and just go through it. You've got it. And I know she's tabled a lot and now my mom is, 62 and she's one of those ones that she's very stubborn, but I'm like, I really think if you took your own mental health for once, all of us kids are grown up now, like take care of yourself because it's so important. And she's one of those ones, she's so stubborn, like, oh, I don't need it. I'm good. I figured it out. But no, you don't. Like, I know you, mom. I love
Yeah.
you, mom. I'm looking at you and everything you've been through. I don't know
Mhm.
how you're even still standing here, and I think you should really
Yeah.
consider it.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Like, I think my parents are of similar ilk, like especially being like parents or being immigrants to this country and like having
Mhm.
to adapt to Western culture and to then try to raise kids within that. There's so much that they had to go through. So I understand like how they couldn't have afforded the time it would take to get their mental health in order. Uh, but now that they're grandparents, like the goal is to make sure that they can remain engaged with their not only their children but their children's children. And sometimes it will require them to have a level of emotional intelligence that they may not possess currently, but they
Mhm.
could easily develop it.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, it's one of those things. You're never too old to do it. Like I've gotten back into therapy and it was the best thing for me. And I know some people it's not. Some people you have to find different therapists and you have to go through that whole thing. And it takes a couple. My poor fiance took him like 4 to find a decent one, but now he has one and it's something he does, and I love that he does it, and I love that you're openly talking about it because it's nice to have that on this podcast that so many people are willing to have these conversations because it's so important to get that's part of the awareness too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think we all, or at least what I've come to appreciate is that our generation and the generations after us are far, or at least to me, seem like they're far more empathetic
Hmm.
than previous ones. That ones that were, like you said, has the whole like pull yourself up by your own bootstraps type of energy. Whereas, like I think us and all the younger generations are like, okay, well, how can we help you? Like, because we
Yeah.
know that like just being human is tough. It's hard.
Hmm.
Like, this shit is not easy. It's not
No.
easy, and it's not always fun. And sometimes people really do struggle with it. And the nicer thing to do is to try to help someone get by as opposed to just being like, figure your shit out.
Hmm.
Like how are we treating everyone with kindness because we would want to be treated with kindness when we were struggling too.
Oh, 1,000%. Like one of those things I always try and keep in mind. I forget who said it, but somebody did, where we're all just living lives like for the first time. So we all have to be patient with each other a little bit because we're all going through this, even our parents, everybody for the first time. And it's like you said, life is it's fucking hard. It's hard. And it is just realizing that and being more empathetic and realizing, hey, we're all going through this, first timers, and we don't all have it figured out at all. And it's oh
No, none
no.
of us do.
No, and despite what social media shows you, but oh my gosh, this has been so great. And before I let you go about your
Mm.
day, I want to hear, I mean, we have obviously City Boys, Pretty Girls, which everybody should be listening to. It's so good. What else can we expect? Can you say anything that's on the horizon for Haunter that you're excited about?
Well, yeah. I mean, we're definitely we have another song that will be released in October, and then we'll probably have another song in January, and another one maybe in March or April. Like, so there's always going to be more music, and I definitely think that we are with every song we're going to get bigger, bolder. Like I think the visuals are going to start really coming together because we finally have like a team with us that can help us build like the video content. So that's exciting. We'll start to do live shows next year. So everything is feeling really really good. So I think all the things that people hopefully have come to know and love of our band will just get amplified even more so in 2025, and that's really exciting because I love this band. I love what we get to do, and I love these songs. So I can't wait for more people to hear them.
I mean, I can't. I really can't. I'm so glad, however, like that emo social club thing has led me there because I'm like another band I love. Like I love so much. And it's not just because you're across from me, but even like Paralyzed, that's another song. Like I know it's a fan favorite probably, but that one, I'm like, this is just it's so good what you guys are putting out. And I'm really excited to see what's next for you guys.
Well, thanks. I love Paralyzed, and the funny thing is that is Lucy's favorite song, far and away, and she likes it. I remember when we wrote it, she was like, "No, this is going to be our most popular song. I can
Hmm.
already tell."
Yeah.
And she's right by like a long shot. Paralyzed is definitely like the track that's getting people's attention.
I mean, I can see why. I mean, again, that for me, I was like, all right, this is so great. Like that was my kind of like appetizer to City Boys, Pretty Girls. So I was like, all right, let's do this. But oh my gosh, again, this has been so great. And I guess before I also let you go, where can everyone find you? I mean, I know I'll post all the links, but if someone wants to listen, where can everybody check you guys out?
Yeah, you can find us on pretty much every social media platform. Like our handle is at Haunter Isn't Real. That's on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Snapchat. Like we're if there's any major social media platform, you can find us there. Our website is haunterisn'treal.com. We're on the sites, on the socials at all times. So feel free to DM us, let us know. We also have a Discord. Our Discord username is at Hunter Isn't Real. So join our Discord. Come hang out with us. Like we're there every so often. But yeah, it's been awesome, Lisa. I really do
Mhm.
appreciate that.
And all right, guys, that was my conversation. I cannot thank Enoma enough for wanting to come on and chat with me. Because again, it's so cool when it's just us two. I love having whole bands on and the entire band, but it is really cool when you just have a one-on-one conversation and it's like you're shooting the shit. So that's how I felt like it was. It was so just normal, it's one of those things. I've been really blessed with everybody that comes on here that it's really organic and it's just us talking. Please go check out all their music, all links below. Go follow them and go follow the Emo Social Club. Brian and Lizzie are amazing, as you heard. They've truly supported this show by having me on theirs, and by having me on their show led to this conversation. So little things like that, go follow them. I'm going to link them below too. So go follow them, go check them out. As for Justine and I, we will be back next week with a conversation from a really great guest, and I can't wait to share that. And next week, we are only going to have one episode, kind of honestly, me personally going through a lot of stuff. So I kind of run the show over here in terms of episodes and getting them out. So I'm only going to do one conversation next week, but we'll go back to our normal 2 a week, all that good stuff. But as always, if you are enjoying this show, be sure to share the show. If you are liking the show, remember to follow us, subscribe to the show, and leave us a positive rating and review. It would mean so much to us. As for Justina, you will see us on Monday with that wonderful conversation. All right. Bye, guys.